Tom stormed angrily into his mother's room with a gun in his hands. It was Saturday morning, and his mother, Mary, who was pregnant, was dressing for church. Earlier, she had disciplined Tom for hitting a neighbor's child, and he had been crying in his room ever since. Now, he stood in the doorway, tears still in his eyes, gripping his father's gun tightly. "Tom, what are you doing with that gun?" Mary asked fearfully, freezing in place. Tom didn't reply. Instead, he walked toward her, his face full of anger, pointing the gun at her. "What is wrong with you? Why are you bringing your father's gun into my room? Have you completely lost your mind?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "Not another word, woman, or I'll shoot you right here," Tom said sharply, his voice shaking but firm as he kept the gun pointed at her. "Tom, give me that gun right now," Mary shouted, trying to stay calm. "If you don't, I'll make sure you don't eat anything today, and you will not go to church with me. Do you hear me? Hand it over now." As she stepped forward to take the gun from him, she was utterly shocked by what happened next. Once upon a time, there lived a couple named Kingsley and Mary, who had a 6-year-old son named Tom. Though they had their fair share of challenges, things took a turn for the worse when one day Kingsley stormed out of the house after an argument with Mary and never called her. This left Mary, who was 6 months pregnant, deeply worried and distressed. Kingsley had always been a caring husband and father, so his sudden departure without explanation was shocking. That night, Mary tried calling him repeatedly, but he ignored her calls, leaving her in tears. Why is he doing this? What could have gone wrong? "Oh God, I hope he's safe," Mary said to herself, unable to sleep as thoughts of her husband filled her mind. The next day, Mary decided to look for Kingsley. After searching the usual places, she went to his best friend Mark's house to ask for help. "Mark, have you seen Kingsley? He left the house yesterday after an argument and hasn't returned or called me," Mary said, her voice trembling. "No, Mary. I haven't seen him, but I did talk to him last night." "Didn't he tell you where he was going?" Mark asked. "No, he didn't. He just walked out while I was in the kitchen. I've been calling him, but he won't pick up. I'm scared, Mark. I don't know what to do," Mary replied on the verge of tears. "Let me call him. Maybe he'll answer my call," Mark said as he dialed Kingsley's number. "Hello, Kingsley? Where are you?" "Mary is here and she's very worried about you," Mark asked. "She's there with you?" Kingsley replied coldly. "Yes, she's here," Mark said. But before he could say anything further, Kingsley abruptly ended the call and switched off his phone. "Mary, is everything okay between you and Kingsley? Did you two have a big fight?" Mark asked, concerned. "No, Mark. We had a small misunderstanding, but nothing serious. I don't understand why he's acting like this," Mary said sadly. "Mary, go home and rest. I'll try talking to him later. Don't worry, he'll come back," Mark reassured her. Mary reluctantly left, but her heart was heavy with worry. Meanwhile, Kingsley was staying with his mistress, Rita, who was also pregnant with his child. That morning, as he sat on the couch, he confessed his feelings to her. "Rita, ever since I met you, I've felt trapped in my marriage. I don't love Mary anymore. I don't even want to go back to her," Kingsley said. "So, what do you plan to do now?" Rita asked, her tone curious. "I don't know. She's pregnant, and I can't divorce her while she's in this condition. But I wish she would leave me on her own so I can be with you," Kingsley replied. "What's your wife afraid of the most?" Rita asked. "Mary is terrified of guns and knives. She can't even stand being near them," Kingsley admitted. "Perfect," Rita said with a cunning smile. "Here's what you'll do. Every time you have a misunderstanding with her, use her fears against her. Instead of arguing, just threaten her with a knife or pretend to use a gun. She'll feel so unsafe and uncomfortable that she'll leave you on her own. If you truly love me, Kingsley, and want to be with me, this is the best way to get rid of her without divorcing her." "Are you sure this will work?" Kingsley asked, uncertain. Trust me, it will. Just follow the plan, Rita said confidently. Kingsley nodded, unsure of what he was about to do, but desperate to be with Rita. Little did he know that his actions would set off a chain of events that could destroy everything. One night, Mary attended a church vigil and returned home late. To her shock, she found the gate locked and Kingsley standing there, refusing to let her in. "Where are you coming from at this hour?" Kingsley asked angrily. "From church, Kingsley. I told you I was going for the vigil," Mary responded calmly. "Don't lie to me. Who knows where you've been all night? You're cheating on me, aren't you?" Kingsley accused her. "Cheating? Kingsley, I'm pregnant with your child and I went to church to pray for our family. Why are you doing this to me?" Mary asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. But Kingsley wouldn't listen. He continued to hurl accusations at her, but Mary stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated. She eventually persuaded him to open the gate, but it was clear that things were getting worse. Kingsley realized that accusing Mary of cheating wasn't working. That's when he decided to implement the idea his mistress, Rita, had given him. Rita had told him to use Mary's fears against her, and Kingsley, desperate to make her leave the house, decided to act on the plan. The following evening, after a minor disagreement, Kingsley stormed into the room, opened a drawer, and took out the gun. He pointed it at Mary, his face cold and menacing. "Do you see this gun? I'm tired of your stubbornness. If you don't start respecting me, you'll regret it," he threatened. Mary froze in fear. She had always been terrified of guns, and Kingsley knew it. Tears welled up in her eyes as she begged him to calm down. Mary's friend visited the next day and noticed her distressed state. "Mary, what's wrong? You don't look well," her friend asked. Mary hesitated but eventually told her friend about Kingsley's behavior. Her friend was shocked. "Mary, this is too much. You need to leave or report him to his parents. This isn't safe for you or your baby," her friend urged. "No, it's marriage. We'll fix it. Kingsley is just going through something. He'll change," Mary insisted. "Mary, this isn't normal. He's threatening you with a gun while you're pregnant. Please, think about your safety," her friend pleaded. But Mary wouldn't listen. "Marriage isn't always easy. We promised to stay together through thick and thin. I'll give him time to come back to his senses," she said firmly. From that day forward, Kingsley continued to use Mary's fears to control her. He threatened her with a gun or mentioned her unfaithfulness whenever she disagreed with him. Their son, Tom, began to witness these incidents, and it left a lasting impact on him. He grew disrespectful toward his mother, often echoing his father's words. One evening, Tom asked his father, "Daddy, why do you always scare Mommy with the gun? She looks so sad." "Tom, your mother is stubborn and doesn't listen. I have to make her respect me," Kingsley replied coldly. Kingsley and Mary were a married couple with a 6-year-old son named Tom. Kingsley's growing hostility toward Mary had started affecting their home, and their son, Tom, had become stubborn and disrespectful. He often imitated his father's actions, especially how Kingsley used intimidation to get his way. One afternoon, Mary disciplined Tom for bullying a younger child in their compound. Tom had pushed the child to the ground and refused to apologize, prompting Mary to intervene. She scolded him harshly, making him sit in his room to reflect on his behavior. Furious and humiliated, Tom decided to do what he had seen his father do countless times. Later that evening, as Mary was in her room preparing for dinner, Tom stormed in. He had sneaked into his father's room, opened the drawer, and taken out Kingsley's gun, which had been carelessly left loaded. Holding the gun tightly, Tom entered his mother's room, his small hands trembling, but his face set with anger. "Tom, what are you doing with your father's gun?" Mary asked, alarmed, her voice shaking with fear. Tom didn't respond. Instead, he pointed the gun at her, mimicking the stance he had seen his father take so many times when he wanted to assert dominance. "Tom, answer me. What's wrong with you? Why are you bringing that gun here?" Mary asked, her voice trembling even more. "Mommy, you're always shouting at me. You don't listen to me and you're always on my case. I'm tired of you, Tom shouted back, his little voice filled with anger. Tom, put that gun down right now. This is not a joke. Where did you get it? Mary demanded. From Daddy's drawer. He said that if someone doesn't listen, you use the gun to make them afraid and respect you. Now you'll respect me, Tom yelled, holding the gun firmly. Tom, listen to me carefully, Mary said, trying to stay calm despite the terror coursing through her. This is dangerous, and I am your mother. I discipline you because I love you. Put that gun down and let's talk. No! You're always punishing me. You made me say sorry to that stupid kid. I'm not sorry, Tom screamed, stepping closer to her. Mary's heart raced as she tried to think of a way to defuse the situation. Tom, this isn't what good boys do. Daddy is wrong to use that gun to scare people, and so are you. Put it down before someone gets hurt. Mommy, I'm not scared of you anymore. You're always mean to me, Tom shouted. But as Mary tried to approach him to take the gun, Tom accidentally pressed the trigger. The sound of the gunshot rang through the house, and Mary screamed in pain as she fell to the ground. Tom froze, the gun slipping from his small hands as he stared in shock at his mother, who was lying on the floor, bleeding. He was overwhelmed with fear and guilt and collapsed to the ground beside her. The loud noise startled the entire household. The chef, hearing the gunshot, ran to Mary's room. When she opened the door, she was horrified to find Mary lying motionless on the floor and Tom unconscious beside her. Jesus! What happened here? She screamed, running to call the gatekeeper and Mary's driver. They all rushed into the room, stunned by the scene before them. What happened to Madam and her son? The gatekeeper asked, his voice filled with panic. I don't know. I just heard the gunshot and came running, the chef replied, her hands trembling. Let's get them to the hospital now. Hurry, the driver said. Together, they carefully lifted Mary and Tom and rushed them to the nearest hospital, praying that they would survive. As they drove, the chef silently cursed Kingsley for leaving a loaded gun in the house and for the toxic behavior that had turned young Tom into a reflection of his father. The chef said they then rushed Tom and his mother to the hospital, and when they arrived, the chef called Kingsley and told him what had happened to his wife and son. When Kingsley arrived, he was shocked by what he saw in the hospital. To be continued. Please leave comments, like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell to be notified when part 2 is released. Thanks a million for watching.